Hey. Get this thing up at a good position. All right. Maybe do some playing while everybody starts to come in. All right. Let's see. Maybe over a backing track. Hope everything's safe with you too, man. Let me see if I can do this thing without it shutting off the comments. All right, just gonna do some playing now. I think. What's happening with you guys over there? Anyway, let's see. Let's see what backing track works today. So what thing? Yeah. Jonathan, what's up, dude? Yeah, I think we're all in quarantine. Denny, what's up, bro? See what happens. Oh, I forgot this is tuned down. I keep forgetting this is tuned to E flat, so I'm used to playing this tune, D modulating to E flat, so it gets a little funky. Let me see some of these comments. I don't know how to bring them back immediately. I feel like they're gone, and oh, here we go. All right, let me go back. All right, let's see here. Julio, what's up, bro? Badass family, yeah. How much economy picking do you use? What's your technique, phrasing? Gabe, what's up, dude? Brian. Yo, Brian's a killer player, man. You guys should check him out. How much economy picking do I do? Okay. So my economy picking is broken. It only works one way. So I can do like I can do it on the way up. And I've worked out licks to work on the way up. But then on the way back I can't do economy, so I do alternate, And I try to practice scales with alternate. Also, if I'm playing with like a clean, like a jazz tone or something, I don't like to do economy. So I used to take lessons with Jonathan Kreisberg, who's a really killer New York jazz guy, and I used to be like real into economy back then, and I remember one time we, how I would do a lot of economy picking and he wouldn't do, and then all of a sudden he started playing all these lines with economy picking, and I was like, wow, dude, I didn't know you could play with economy picking. He's like, yeah, I could, I just don't like the sound of it sometimes. And he does do it. Like if you look at him now, he's worked out more legato licks and economy picking things. But he had a good point, and he was talking about. Let me kill some of this reverb. He was talking about how this sounds different from, and then it's like three totally different sounds. This, which is like I guess would be the sweep, and this would be like the legato, and then this would be like the alternate. And then he was saying how like all of these things just sound totally different, and it's kind of a different. Oh, a little later. It's my wife saying the pasta's ready, but I'm still on stage one of the day. Anyway, so yeah, it's interesting, but this it's a very particular sound, And he used Frank Mbali as an example. How he does those fourths things. And then it does have a very specific sound, It doesn't. It sounds like that, So Kreisberg's approach to it was, you shouldn't do it because it's the only way you know how to do it. You should do it because you choose to, like you're going for that sound, but not because that's the only way you can play a descending triad, So let me see if I missed some comments. So yeah, that was the whole thing, and that Rhett, what's up, Rhett? Yeah, I'm sure you guys know Rhett. Got some great killer videos. Yeah, so that goes back to the Kreisberg thing, right? But then it goes back to another thing that I used to play with this guy from. He was from Texas, but he lived in Florida for a bit, and he used to play with Al Jarreau. If you guys don't know Al Jarreau, he's like a super famous, I guess, I don't know, what would you call that, R&B vocal kind of thing. I don't know how to not hide the comments. Maybe Rhett knows. But anyway, he would tell me, and this is kind of like a lesson between what Kreisberg would tell me and this other guy, Austin Beal, would tell me. And he would say, you shouldn't, everything that you play, you should play it on purpose. You know, you shouldn't play something because it's the only way you know how to play it. You know, like if I play, you know, like a pentatonic kind of picking thing. You know, that has a certain sound, but then if I do it with like the hybrid, that has a different sound. And then obviously if I, you know, all of those things have different sounds. So I guess the point behind that lesson that these two guys I kind of gathered in my mind was that you shouldn't, I guess, I mean, you could say that you shouldn't only have one way to play things, you know? You should find all the different ways to play something and then choose which one you want to go for, right? Like if you're just playing like a soft kind of, maybe there you want to do right? Maybe there you want to do this because it's kind of like a little bit more tender, you know? Even if you play that, it's kind of like, you know, it's not very aggressive sounding, you know, as opposed to, you know, anything that you do with like real heavy picking will sound aggressive. So if you were to access that gear like at the beginning of a soft solo, then it sounds a little bit out of place, you know, unless you're implying for everybody else to kind of build with you. So that was the whole concept. It's kind of like Tom Quayle just posted on Instagram a few days ago that he was working on his alternate picking, and it's like better than everybody's alternate picking, you know. And he's not even like an alternate picker. But yeah, especially when you start recording yourself and stuff like that, it really, a lot of those things come into play, like how to play, you know, like this, like this, like the finger, as opposed to like the pinky, or you know, there's like little tiny nuances, but they do sound different. And I've been watching. I'm sure we've all been watching those Tom Bukovac videos, but I was paying attention. He does them this way, you know, as opposed to like. And then I think it's Robin Ford does the, you know, he like flicks the finger. You know, as opposed to like the. This has its own thing because then you can do licks like. But then it also sounds more like staccato, I guess, as opposed to. So, all of those things are things that you should, you know, well, I'll bring myself into it. We should all be aware of, you know, because those are things you don't notice about your playing, you know. Like, one of the other things that Jonathan Kreisberg would tell me is he would really, when he would practice, he would really purposely start lines on certain parts of the beat, you know, like if I'm playing here, let me go back to this track. If I'm starting everything on the downbeat, then it has a certain thing. So. You know, everything has so much weight when you play it on the downbeat. Now, if you start it on syncopating beats, then it sounds different, you know. You know, so it's like there's so much weight. Like that's why a lot of times if you're playing like a funky thing, the downbeat is like the kind of makes it, you know, making that downbeat. You know, down. So all of those things are super important. Where you start your lines, you know, because a lot of times if you don't think about it and you listen back, like maybe go listen to your solos. And again, I'm talking to myself on this too because I'm not like the king of this. But if you go back and listen to your solos, maybe you'll find that you always start your lines on a downbeat, or you always start your lines on beat two, or you know, or if you're playing a fast line, you know, that was like a Michael Brecker thing. He would say, you know, Michael Brecker. One of my favorite things about him is he could be playing. I don't know. There's some album. I'll have to find it again, but it's like one of the first Michael Brecker albums, or maybe it was a Brecker Brothers. Whatever. The point is, he's playing like it's like a funky thing, and he's just playing real pocket, and then all of a sudden he starts this like crazy like 30-second note line, and it's just like it almost sounds like it was quantized because it was so exact, you know. And then I remember him saying in an interview that he works on purposely starting fast lines on different parts of the, like in different subdivisions of the 16th note, and that's a bitch, man. I mean, if you know, if you start a line right on the downbeat, but then like starting it, say like, you know, things like that. Maybe the first time you'll be a little off, and then as you start to work it in, it's like you're kind of ironing out the kinks. You know, it's like when you're leveling frets, you start ironing out the. Let's see. You know, any of these like triplet bass things, you can always imply like an even. Actually, let me look at these comments before I finish that idea. I'll go back to that. Okay, let me see. He needs some handicaps. Yeah, Rhett, you're playing. Oh man, you're playing is so badass, dude. Kidding me? Non-guitar musical influences. Oh yeah, absolutely. Michael Brecker, Chick Corea. I mean, you know, I studied jazz, so a lot of them are like jazz guys. But yeah, sax players. I love sax players. Michael Brecker, Chris Potter, Joshua Redman. They're all really great players. John Coltrane, of course. I mean, his intensity, so crazy. You know, they're all like jazz guys, I guess. There's a lot of. I remember when Alex Sargento first came out with his albums. He's a keyboard player, but he's got like a fusion thing going. But he's got some like killer, like lines. You know, he's a keyboard player, but it almost sounds like his lines should be like guitar lines. You know. Let me see if I can find something so you guys hear what I'm talking about. If you've never heard him. And he's actually also a guy that mixes a lot of these, like, modern fusion guys. So, and it's funny, he dials in this kind of like, this is like the tune that everybody was covering, but you'll hear what I mean. It sounds like guitar almost. See, so you see, it's kind of like it's got like that fusion thing, but it's not. A lot of times, hearing somebody like that forces you to play differently because guitar players will always go for that thing, you know. Let me go back and see some of these comments. Ben, what's up, man? What's happening? Oh man, thank you guys so much. Let's see my guitar influences. So many. Let's see. When I was growing up, I was big into like, you know, Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, Yngwie Malmsteen. I was huge into like Yngwie Malmsteen. You know, I knew all the all that stuff. Oh, the song was Synchronal Steps. Synchronal, I guess. Just to look for Alex Argento. But yeah, Malmsteen stuff. You know, I think I'm very fortunate that I was attracted to that type of shreddy music at first, because that kind of develops this gear of playing. You know, that maybe right now I'm not gonna play that over a song, but it's good to be able to access that. You know, if you need it. You like Ted Green? Yeah, Ted Green. Ted Green is amazing. So Ted Green, it's kind of like a interesting thing. Ted Green was like a jazz solo guy, and he only released an album, and then he just kind of did a lot of clinics. So the only thing you can really find is just some clinics and him playing at like restaurants and stuff. But that album, man, he's got a version of Danny Boy, and he's doing all these crazy walk-ups. Like, I don't know, I don't even know how he did that. And then of course he's got like two books. I don't remember what they're called. One is like all chords, and the other one's like substitutions and stuff. But yeah, that was a big thing for me. I mean, I definitely went through my Joe Pass. You know, that's like the Freddie Green kind of thing. Obviously, when I record that, I use my hollow body, and I'll actually record it into the fractal, and then I'll mic it too, because the string, that's like so much of that sound too. Which goes back to the Kreisberg thing. He also mics his guitar when he records, so that you can hear you know, the picking. Let me go back and see. When did I start playing guitar? Man, I was like 11. I started with all the shredding stuff. What tunes have we been working on? Any songs of my own? No, actually, I just put up a video. If you guys saw it yesterday, it was kind of like all these pickups. Let me show you these P90 pickups that I got. Really cool. So I've always had noiseless P90s, and mainly because I wanted to record them, and I didn't want the noise because these pickups are noisy. But there's this special thing that happens right here in the middle position. Like the P90 thing with the middle pickup, it's just got this thing, How much Axe FX do I play? Well, most of the Axe FX, but my amps too. I was playing with my amp yesterday because I think I want to do a video of my Dumble style amp next. Bring in some of that wet. Maybe I can play something for you guys. I don't know. It feels so weird playing jazz with this, even though it's called the Jazz Master, but nobody uses it for jazz. Chris, el mariachi. Bueno, brother, I can. Mariachi, this is a mariachi. Let me show you guys the mariachi. That's the mariachi right there. My Dumbo style. Did I learn jazz by myself? No, I went to school for jazz. Actually, if you guys want to hear the mariachi, I can plug it in. It's already plugged in, actually, because I was playing it last night. I just got to turn it on. Let those tubes warm up. Let me see how I can get to this without knocking over the phone. It happens so much. Move all these pedals off of it. Alright. And it is not on. Why isn't it? Oh. Sorry, I plugged in the light and I forgot to. Alright, now it's on. Yeah, so I went to school with a guy named Tom Lippincott. He was my main teacher. And then I guess he was my main jazz teacher. But he was also, I was also really into jazz. And I think you have to be into jazz to really learn jazz, Because I know a handful of guys that were in the same classes that I was, and they really weren't into it, They didn't learn as much. But as much as I think a lot of the things with Tom was, I would come to him with something, And Tom was great because he would make me, I'll give you an example of what we would do in class, in my private class. So let's say like a standard, right? Let's say like Stella by Starlight. And if you guys don't know the jazz thing, I can explain to you what jazz is all about. It's basically, if you think back, think of like in the 1920s, whatever the pop tunes were back then, musicians like to do what we do now, right? Like when you go to rehearsal and you're playing over a song and then the singer's not there yet, so you start destroying the song and fucking around with it. Well, that's basically what musicians did back then, and they would take these pop tunes and just play. So at the very beginning, like in the Louis Armstrong era, soloing was just playing the head of the tune. And then eventually people started to kind of venture off with melodies, and it became soloing, because back then there wasn't like jazz school or anything. There wasn't such thing as like, okay, well, here's what you learn, and you play melodic minor over this tune, and it wasn't like that. It was just kind of by ear, and then the jazz became institutionalized much later. But anyway, so to give you an example of what this is, like this is Stella by Starlight, which is a really famous standard, and this is the melody. Actually, Let me plug into something that's tuned to the regular tuning. Let's try this. So, this is the melody. Right? Then it goes back and kind of like danger. Dude, do I know Kinch O'Kane? Man, I was just talking to Kinch on the phone right now. He was talking to me about this George Benson guitar that he just got. I know Kinch very well. We talk all the time. Way too much. I ignore his calls. Let's put it that way. I told him I was doing this live, and he's like, I'm going to Publix. So, whatever. Have fun in Publix, Kinch. Dick. Anyway. Alright. Here's the mariachi. Yeah, Kinch is a great teacher, and he's got a great sense of humor. Alright, so let me see what's happening here. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's on standby. Hold on. I hope I don't knock anything over. Alright, sounds like it's on. Okay, let me go to the clean. So, I'm still going through the fractal. So what I'm doing is I'm going from the mariachi into the load box and then into the fractal for IRs, and because I still want to use my reverbs and delays that I've dialed in there. So this is the clean sound. It's probably a little dark now. And you know, the thing with these Dumble style amps is that basically the channels go one into another as far as gain stages go. That's what they call cascading gain stages. So your clean channel is your clean channel, but then your drive channel has the clean channel still on, and then you basically push and blend one another. So it's not as easy as like say a deluxe reverb where you just kind of have one and then the other and then you just tweak them. So you can really shape the gain, you know, pushing the clean channel into the drive channel, or turning down the clean channel, turning up the drive channel, or maybe turning both down and then turning up the master. Like the different gain stages of those amps are it took me a while to even learn how to use that amp, to be honest with you, because I didn't know much about that stuff. Alright, so I just cranked the preamp channel a bit. Alright, so let's say if I play like I forgot what this thing was all about. I think I was going to play Stella or something, right? Oh yeah, so I was going to talk about what Tom used to make me do in school. Okay, so this is Stella, right? First I'll play the head. So then the head starts again, and he would make me play only on the E string. So like. then like say the B string. You know, so it forces you to like really have to be musical, because then you're not used to playing just licks. Or then we would do this thing where I'd only play here in this position. Let me see where I am in the form, because I got a. So then it forces you to really not have to depend on licks, and you're just kind of, you really get to know the neck, because it's like the same thing with like pentatonic. It's like everybody knows this position and this position, right? But then these positions are kind of weird. Whatever, so then it's like, if you're gonna practice, you should tackle the weird positions that you're not very familiar with, instead of just playing more, because if you play more of what you already know, you're not really learning anything new. Approach to soloing, like over the changes. Okay, this is a great song to talk about changes. Well, actually, this would be like a kind of like intermediate to advanced, because it's got a lot of changes. So it starts with like it's like a minor 2/5. If you guys don't know about jazz, a 2/5 is kind of like the most famous. I don't know, famous, the most used kind of chord progression in jazz. So something really common in this case would be like a minor 2/5 to D minor, right? But this doesn't go to D minor. It's like a 2/5, and then it does a 2/5 to B flat without going to B flat. Then it does a 2/5 to E flat without going. It does go to E flat. So there's constantly things moving around, So like when I think of this song, when I think of this chord, I think of like Locrian with a natural 9, which comes from G melodic minor. And then when it goes to the A7, you can choose to look at it a few different ways. You can look at it either, I wouldn't look at it as Mixolydian, because it's got an F sharp and you're kind of in a minor tonality, So for the first one, G minor, like G melodic minor, and sorry if I'm going too fast. So basically, G melodic minor. Let's see, how can I break this down? With melodic minor. All right, let me rewind. Say in the major modes, right? Say like C major. C major is technically the same notes as like F Lydian, and the same notes as like D Dorian, but they don't sound the same, right? like you can't play like D Dorian over a C major chord. The notes are right, but something feels off, right? So what it is actually the fourth note of like the modes, I guess. The fourth mode is the most tense note of a mode in major, right? If I'm looking at C major, this note feels like it needs to resolve either to here or to here, right? So every mode that has the fourth note of C major and F, every mode that has the fourth as a chord tone is not gonna work over C major, if that makes any sense. So say if you have C major, your chord tone, C, E, G, you don't have an F there, right? Now if you look at the D Dorian, you have an F. So D Dorian won't work when soloing over C major, right? Theoretically it works, it's the right notes, but there's something off about the tension, right? If I'm going, right? The notes are right, but it doesn't sound like the most appropriate thing to play, and it's because of that F. Now, if you look at E minor, right? E Phrygian would be the next one. It doesn't have an F. So technically, you could play E Phrygian lines over C major. In fact, you could even play... That's why you can play an E flat... that's why you can play an E minor triad over a C, and it works. So anytime you have a C major, and you want to imply a major 7 chord, you can play an E minor triad. So F would be the next one, right? F obviously has an F, so F is out of the picture. G Mixolydian has an F. So G Mixolydian is out of the picture. Now Aeolian, it doesn't have an F as a chord tone. So, and then B Locrian, there's the F. So basically, C Ionian, E Phrygian, and A Aeolian, those three blend well together because they don't have an F as a chord tone. And then D Dorian, F Lydian, G Mixolydian, and B Locrian blend well together because they have an F. So if I'm playing, let me see, let me go back to that D minor thing that I was playing before. Oh, before that. So D Dorian, right? Where'd he go? Oh, it was in another window. Okay, here we go. So check it. This is D Dorian, right? So we said that D Dorian has an F, right? Which is a tension that doesn't work over C. But then D Dorian has an F. F Lydian obviously has an F. What was the other one? G Mixolydian has an F because it's the flat 7. And then B Locrian has an F. It's the flat 5. So you're going to see that these work over a D minor. So I'm going to start with a Locrian. Even if I just play a Locrian, so the Locrian gives you a Dorian sound, absolutely. If I play G Mixolydian, it works perfectly fine also. So it kind of like it goes back to like that Pat Martino that I was talking about last time, where he finds the Dorian of everything and then just plays over that. So anyway, those are just some things to keep in mind. What modes work over what? So I don't know how we got to this topic. I think we were talking about Stella. But yeah, it's a lot of it is just certain sounds that work over a chord, and then you choose which sound you want. You know, like if I'm playing this thing. Right, I'm kind of sticking to pentatonic on there. If I were to throw in the sixth, it kind of gives it that Dorian sound. Just the sixth by itself, it gives it that sound. Six obviously gives you the Dorian sound, right? I could access like melodic minor, and then by that I could just play the minor third and then the major seventh. Obviously, I think the track on here, the guitar is playing that line, but let me go to my drive channel. Turn this down a bit. That's the Dumbo, the Indigo, by the way, the mariachi. I'm pushing the preamp into it, so let me back off the preamp. I mean, by the preamp, I mean the clean channel. So I backed off the clean channel. C Covidian scale. It works well with the C demolished major. So anyway, the D melodic minor, I just go into the flat natural 7. Yeah, so that one note is what takes it out. If I'm playing Dorian and then I shift to that note, right? Dorian would be here. And then this goes. That's what makes it go out. Like if I start with Dorian. that gives you an idea. You can kind of take it in and out musically, but it's a thing that you imply on purpose, right? It can't be a thing that you kind of have to know those sounds. Yeah, it works on all Dorian. So here's the thing, though. I'm like a huge. One of my huge pet peeves is playing weird shit when the harmony isn't doing it. You know, it obviously if the solo builds to that, it's cool. You know, but like if somebody's playing C major and you stay on an F, that's like to me that's like Satan. You know, to my ears anyway. So certain notes kind of clash. You know, just like back in the I don't know in the times of Bach, this was like the worst thing ever. The major seven and the root together, you know. That's why you don't see a lot of that classical music from that era. Not a lot of it had major seven sounds, you know. In fact, that's why they call diminished seven, and then that's why C major. That's why C major seven is called C major seven, right? Because it kind of became a thing afterwards. This sound was kind of like too clashing for them, you know. And that's a C major sound, C major seven. Right? So certain notes we've gotten used to hearing over time, like that, and also like if you're playing over and you go right, if you play a minor third over like a dominant major third kind of thing, technically it's wrong, but we've heard it so much that to our ears it's kind of normal now, you know. But some other tensions don't really work that well. So, especially when it comes to recording, like if I'm recording a pop tune, like I was making a chart for this song that I have to record after this live stream. But one of the things that I'm really paying attention to is like every time it gets to the 5 chord, if the piano or whoever's playing the harmony, if they're playing a sus, or if they're playing like an 11, or if they're just playing like a regular third, or if they're playing like a sus 2. This is out of tune. So you have to match that, you know? That's one of the, I think that's one of the reasons why people hate guitar players on gigs sometimes. Because you don't respect the harmony or whatever, you know? Or like if the song goes and it does this, right? First it's sus, but if you start playing the third while it's playing the sus, like that to me is a wrong note, you know, even though it's an E7 or whatever. So going back to your question, can this work over all funky? Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, you decide what works. But so like I hear, if I'm hearing this track right now, there's a guitar that's doing this, right? It's got that flat 7. So if you go here, you're causing this tension. Which, you know, I wouldn't go for that. At least not right off the bat. You kind of have to build, because tension is good, you know, but it's gotta be a thing that's purposely done. You know, otherwise it sounds wrong. It's like if I want to play outside. Okay, so let's go back. So first Dorian, right? Then it was melodic minor. It goes out a little bit. If I wanted to take it more out, I would go to probably to diminished, like diminished. Turn this down a little bit. Which was like the whole half. Right, which is basically a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a half step. And then that scale comes from a diminished arpeggio, and then you put a half step before each note. So and then that scale creates its own triads. So if I go, I already have right here, you have this triad. So you have a triad from the half step below. Then, I mean, to save you some time, you basically go up in triads, in minor triads with major triads, if that makes sense. In minor thirds. So the first one would be, I'm gonna play the bass down here, see here. So the first one would be C sharp triad, E triad, G triad, and B flat triad. Right? Obviously, if I play them right here, it sounds like it's a bunch of triads up in minor thirds, right? But you can also play different versions of the triads so that they all kind of fall. Now that doesn't sound like, you know, that now that sounds like something else is happening. And that's the same thing. So I'm going C sharp, then I'm doing the B flat, and then, sorry, here's the E triad, and then you have also the G triad. So then those are the triads that work over a D minor, well, D diminished, right? But then you can imply that over a D Dorian, I guess. But it's a subtlety thing also, you know? Like, I don't want to start right off the bat and go here. Because it sounds like a wrong note, right? But I can go. There we go. Right? So you see how I kind of sneak it in there, and then I go back and forth, you know? So I can do a line that's something like, you know, so right here I went to the, I did the E triad there. And then back to Dorian, so I went. And then from here up at E triad. And then back to Dorian. Same thing there. E triad. And then, right? But a lot of that comes from kind of knowing that bebop language. You know, I remember watching an interview with Pat Metheny. I love Pat Metheny, and he was talking about how he hates, well, he doesn't hate, but he can't, like, I guess, fusion or jazz guitar playing that doesn't have a background of bebop. And I think that's something that's really common nowadays, because I think a lot of the younger guys, they're listening to the fusion guys, but they're not listening to what the fusion guys were listening to, you know? Like, I can't, you know, this will be an example of a lot of things that I hear. You know, like, what is that, you know? Usually when there's a chromatic thing, like, there's a really famous book that, and I think you can actually find a PDF for it online, but the Nicholas Slonimsky, he has a book of all the possible combinations of chromatic notes or whatever, but all of those, like, you know, like that's D minor, but I'm using this like whole step up, half step up, whole step down, and then the note. But I guess the main purpose here is that chord tones always land on strong beats, you know? There's a strong beat. Fifth. Fifth again. Sounds cool. That's a cool note to play. So those notes have their own kind of thing, you know, like when I went to that key change going to the 11, it sounds so cool, you know, and I feel like so many guys think that jazz is, you know, the 9, everything is the 9, everything's the 9 all the time. But there are so many other cool notes, like that one. Then we can do the get the idea. It's kind of like a in and out thing, but you have to be familiar with all these sounds in order to access them like in a very honest way, you know. Otherwise, it sounds too forced, you know. Let me look through some of these comments. Peter, did you go to school? I did go to school. Yeah, I went to jazz school. Now, I didn't learn a lot of this stuff in school, but I learned kind of like the principles of it, um, which is you know, I guess a lot of it, like, you know, going back to another Pam Athene interview that I saw, he was talking about how he was playing all of this stuff before he knew what it was, and it wasn't until he started playing with Gary Burton, who Gary Burton started out a lot of these guitar players, like even like Julian Lodge, somebody modern like that, you know, played with Gary Burton. And Matheny says in the interview that Gary Burton was the guy that explained to him why some of these things work. You know, like if I took something like "Isn't She Lovely" or something, right? A lot of people play that stuff. This chord, a lot of people will go for like the Mixolydian. But you can also treat it like if it was a Lydian dominant. You know? And then from that point you can look at it as right? That's such a cool sound to me. I love that sound. But it's a melodic minor thing, you know. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know how I got into that, but basically, yeah, I learned in school. I learned a lot of that stuff, but I think a lot of it I learned it after school too. You know, like I think it was some of the principles that my teacher kind of laid out for me, and then after that, I was kind of digging more into it and trying to understand. That's another thing. Like since I was really into jazz, I would transcribe solos, and then I would ask myself, why is this that? You know, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to transcribe licks and then you don't know where to put them. You know, every lick that I play, I can explain why it is that. You know, let me see if I can find a track here where I can play something. All right, look, this is a cool one to superimpose harmony stuff. This is just like G7. I can go for like the Mixolydian sound. Then that's another thing that I'm doing there is like that bebop scale, which is really like I guess it's really like an 8-note Mixolydian. So you add a chromatic note somewhere. So if this is Mixolydian, then you add one note somewhere. That's a common spot to do it. So right? Or it could be but that works cool because it kind of squares out the scale and you can play it in different octaves without the notes kind of overlapping. That's a lot of that, is that. all of that is Mixolydian. And then of course I'm thinking also pentatonic, because what I was mentioning earlier, we're kind of okay with hearing this now. Like a minor third over a major third chord when it's a dominant chord, yeah? Like I can do this. So all of that, I'm thinking Mixolydian and pentatonic, right? I'm specifically emphasizing thirds and sevenths, right? That kind of gives it like the funky thing, thirds and sevenths. So I can just stay with that. Or the sixth. Right? That's the seventh and the third. So now, if I wanted to take that a little further, I would think of like the fourth mode of melodic minor, which is this note. Which is a Mixolydian, but instead of this note, it's a sharp fourth. So it's like Mixolydian sharp 4, or some people call it Mixolydian. What is it? Lydian dominant. That's what I call it, Lydian dominant, because it's a Lydian. But instead of this note, it's like dominant, right, which is a flat 7. So that takes it somewhere else. And then I love that sound, but I love to not give it all right away. So then I can start with the Mixolydian sound. Right? Right, so it's that Lydian. That's the sound right there. It's like an A7. It's like an A chord with the flat 7 from the G, which would be an F. That's that sound, right? So it's like this. Like this would be Mixolydian. And then also imply it for a second and then bring it back. So. So that's the A triad, and then to the flat 7 of G. So it's kind of like a thing where you bring it in and you bring it out and you bring it in, you bring it out, because you want it to be mostly something that the listener can grasp onto, right? Like everybody can kind of grasp onto something like. Right? That's kind of like you know those notes. And then you kind of start bringing things in. So it's kind of that thing, and then that can go out even further. So I was starting with Mixolydian, right? Then I was going to like Lydian dominant. Then I can take it to altered, which then would be like G super Locrian. Which is like an A flat melodic minor, you know? And then that sound is a little more dark. It's like the altered sound. Right? And I bring it back, right? Because if not, it would be. That's like all super Locrian, right? And then there's also another super Locrian you can play, which is if you're thinking. Right? Then you can superimpose that change, which would then be like D super Locrian. Which would be like an E flat melodic minor. So I'll show you G Mixolydian, and then on the last bar, I'll play like a D altered or D super Locrian. That sucked, but right? Okay, so look, super locking and leading dominant, they're not the same. It's from the same mother scale, but Lydian dominant is the fourth mode of melodic minor, and then super locking is the seventh note. So basically, if I'm thinking of G7 from G Mixolydian or G Lydian dominant, that's coming from D melodic minor. Right? So G Lydian dominant is coming from D melodic minor, right? Now G altered or G superlocrian is coming from A flat melodic minor, right? So it's technically, it is the same mother scale, but they're coming from different keys, right? So I'll show you one and the other. This is G Lydian dominant. Right? That's it. Then this would be super locrian from G. That's like this sound. Right? And then the other one that I was talking about would be to play D super locrian just as a passing tone. So at that point, I'm adding right? So that's the trick there. It's just kind of like bringing it in and out, you know? But then a big thing of it is also knowing the tension, you know? Like, I know that Mixolydian has the least amount of tension. Now, Lydian dominant has a little more tension here. And then G super locrian has even more tension because it's got this note. So this is all just talking about scales, you know. Then the other thing is the rhythmic thing. That whole thing is another world because I can just take one scale and then just use rhythm as my interesting thing. You know, like I can take like the G Mixolydian thing and imply a rhythm. Like I can take like say the triplet, like the 4/3 kind of thing. It's like when you take a triplet, which is a group of 3, right? It's an odd group. But then you accent an even, I guess like an even tie between the odd groups. So instead of so that's like 4/3. Because the rhythm is a triplet. Right? Or you could be like 2/3. Let me play it so you can hear what I'm talking about. That's a triplet, right? That would be the 2. And now the 4. Right? I could take 3. That would be the 3, and then I could add one note to break the pattern. So what I'm doing there is, let me see. That's like 7. Right? It's like I'm accenting like I guess like a 7 polyrhythm, or you could do like 5. That's like a really common Kreisberg thing. So he takes like a 7, like a pattern in 5. So that's one thing, which is like fitting 5 notes in one beat. Right, the beat is. But that's not the same as a group of 5, which would be like, say I take, let me see. Let me see. It's so weird. I've done it so long that when I think about it, I screw it up. You know. Or you could take also the other thing that I was talking with 4, like say 4 and add one note to it. Let me see if it makes sense what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so say like 16 notes. So I'm taking 4 and then I'm adding another 16th note at the end of that, but making it like a tie. Right? So that's another interesting thing, doing the kind of like the rhythmic thing. Let me see some of these comments. Gustavo, I'm struggling to have a nice sound when I record myself at home. I'm using the HX sound. Okay, so what do you mean by terrible sound? Yeah, because I think a lot of times, I was watching, I think it was like Dan Huff or something that said that there's no such thing as a bad sound. It's just what's inappropriate. So, say if you're looking for it sounds fake and poopy. Well, I guess I'll tell you the thing with I think for like a solo sound, a certain guitar tone always falls within a certain range of. Right now, this is my amp, the Indigo. Like dumbly vox. Okay, so guitar tones kind of have their own frequency range of the things that they need and the things that they don't need. So I think once you figure out what you can cut off for a certain part, like for example, if I want to lead, let me add an EQ here. Marcelo, hello from Brazil, man. What part of Brazil are you in? I love Brazil. Yeah, actually, what Vuk just said, fake. I mean, it could be a thing that your power amp is not turned on. Or yeah, the cab sim. Uh, a cab really, what a cab is like it's like a filter, if you think about it that way. That's why cabs are different, because they're different filter shapes or slopes, or whatever. Um, for example, it's very typical to cut off everything below, say, 90 hertz or 100 hertz, and then cut off everything above like 10K or 9K, right? Because those frequencies, like, let me see if I can get a EQ here. Let me set this to flat. All right. So here's the thing. I'll show you what happens. Hi-fi, yeah, exactly. Well, you certainly should be able to remove the hi-fi. Maybe if it's like a digital leak kind of thing. They seem to be like a lot of the plugins have this kind of like high mid thing that's kind of funky. So like, say if I boost like 31 hertz, there's nothing there, right? Actually, I'm also blocking it in several places of my chain, so it's not gonna come up. This is 63 hertz, 60 hertz, right? Not much coming through there either, because I'm blocking it in a bunch of places. So anything below like 100 hertz, I really don't use, so I just cut it off, right? If you start to get into like 100 to like 300, that's like the body of the guitar, right? 100 seems to be like that oomph that comes from the speaker, which you're not gonna need anyway in a track, right? Which is this. Right, so it's kind of like thumpy thing that you're not really gonna use. See, I just took it off. I took it off, and the important part of the tone is still there. Now here's 250. That's also not something you need, right? I mean, you need it, but it's not something crucial to your guitar tone, right? If I boost it, I'm gonna boost it over here on the neve, right? Trying to not get this thing to distort digitally. If I lower it, it still sounds like a guitar tone, you know? Now, when you start getting a little bit higher, those are the frequencies that you want to look into, right? Now let's skip the middle section and let's just go way up high, right? This is like I'm adding stuff that's like 16 hertz. I mean 16K. Nothing really there, you know. They say humans can't really hear. Some humans can't even hear 20K. But I think around 8K is where you can start. This is 8K. So it adds something so subtle at the top that even if I were to cut off 8K, it says everything above 8K is gone. It cut off a little bit of kind of like the top end brightness, but the sound is still there. Right? That sound can work perfectly for a lot of things, and basically, again, that's everything above 8K is gone, and everything below 100 hertz is gone, right? So then now you have to figure out all those frequencies in between 100 hertz and 8K, what they do, right? I know for a fact that if you boost 1K or 2K, oh man, of course, YouTube compression. Well, actually, it's that, but also I'm not really moving anything that's crucial right now. So now I'm going to start moving the things that are crucial, and I think even the compression should be able to let you hear it. Like 1K, for example. Check this out. This is... Actually, let me get a clean sound so you can... Cleaner sound. Oops. Okay. So... I think these are kind of like the crucial spots of a guitar tone. Right? I'm gonna start boosting 1K. All of a sudden it cuts through, you know? Right? All of that is just 1K. Now if I go a little bit higher, let me go back to what was before. Is there a way to bypass the electronic waves from the computer? Stuff from my house? That actually sounds like you nailed my problem. Electronic waves. You mean like noise, like ground? If it's ground noise, I mean, a lot of it is just pickups, you know? Or, yeah, 1K boost is the bomb. I always do that for all my solos. I boost that up. sometimes you can mess a little bit. You know, that's why I love the Neve. This Neve preamp. It just kind of has everything that I need. Like if I need to boost top end, it's so aggressive. Check this out. Right there's top end. Now it's gone. You know. Sometimes, sometimes a really sensitive EQ isn't great for this. You know. Sometimes I want something aggressive, like the Neve or the SSL stuff is really aggressive. Something like the Fab Filter, those are great for mixing, but you kind of have to really push them to hear a massive difference. You know. Let me go back to a clean sound. Right. So then maybe for a clean sound, you want to boost that high end. I don't know if you guys can hear that difference there. Let me try to move away from the acoustic. Right? So I think a lot of it is that because if you think about it, if you just play an amp, an amp head by itself sounds terrible, right? Like actually, let me show you this amp. You know, this is a $3,600 amp, and this is without a cab. Now it's gonna sound like. Right now, let me add a drive to this. Man, my $3,600 amp sounds like shit. Right? Because basically the cab is filtering out. Let me try to do something weird over here. And I'm gonna try to EQ. So without a cab, I'm gonna try to EQ what a cab would do, right? Without the cab. So I'm gonna take out 16K, take out 8K. Maybe I'll boost around 250. Right? Take out a little bit more top end. Yep, 8K is all the way down. So it still doesn't sound great, but check this out compared to this. Right? So all that to say that your EQ, your cab is basically an EQ shelf. You know, it's kind of like have its own shape of. You can look them up. Every speaker they show you where it's peaking and. Okay, now let me see. Oh, there we go. Now here's the cab. So yeah, all that to say that, yeah, you must have some problems with wiring and all that stuff. At my old house, everything was super noisy, even with noiseless pickups. So I had to use a gate. Here, I don't have that problem. But if you add a gate, it'll help you with the noise. Maybe get a guitar with humbuckers. Maybe if you have a Strat or something with noisy pickups or something with P90s that are noisy, that'll make it difficult for you to record yourself, and get a good sound. Yeah, yeah. What he's saying, it you can really hear. In fact, I think I should be able to do it here in the fractal. Let me see. This is so loud. Oh, yeah. I thought I could see it, but I don't know. I have to go back and see how it does it. But yeah, every speaker is like an EQ curve, you know, and different speakers will peak at different frequencies, depending on what you're looking for. That's the whole thing about whether you get a vintage 30 or greenbacks versus heritage 65 or anything like that. So definitely look into, maybe open up an EQ plugin and check out some of the presets on it. Yeah, yeah. Or what's it called? Isotope. They have like a denoise or dehum or whatever. Maybe something like that might work. Um, but I mean, you'd be surprised if you listen to these isolated guitar tracks from classic albums. There's plenty of noise. You just have to kind of, after you finish recording your track, just kind of chop it up. And I always do that when I'm recording. And actually, that's a big thing about using a volume pedal. Because if I'm not using, hear that? So I always just kind of, and then I lower it when I'm not playing. That's one of my pet peeves. Like going to see a band and the guitar player's not playing, and you just hear. It's like, dude, lower your volume pedal. It's so unmusical. Because I guess I grew up in this time where noiseless pickups exist. And I know it's a thing about the guitar. My friends we always have conversations about this with noise. Why take out the noise, leave it where it is, it's musical. Some of the older guys will not care about it. Thank you for, man, yeah, a line is amazing, man. Euphoria Morning is, yep, I love that album. I've heard it so many times. And he's got some great albums too. A line. His wife passed away years ago, and then he obviously didn't continue with the band after that because she was the keyboard player and the singer. But he's got so many cool albums with 11, and then after that, with this little cigar box guitar. So cool. Mm. A lot of cool rotaries and slides, and that's when you notice that a lot of those guys don't really use a lot of drive. It's just it's like this would be. That would be like the most drive that they use. Would you say that there's much of a noticeable difference between the newer releases and the real Strat single coils, or would you be? No, I mean, I'll tell you. I have a friend. If you watch like my Fuchs video, I did a video with a Fuchs amp, and then also I did a video with a Strat. It was like a custom Strat, and I borrowed that Strat from a friend of mine, and it's a Fender custom shop, and it's got these John Cruz pickups. John Cruz is, if you guys don't know who John Cruz is, he's one of these like super high demand builders at Fender. Like a lot of the guys like John Suhr, they started out in Fender, and then they left. But John Cruz that's his name, I think, right? John Cruz. Hope I'm not fucking it up. John Cruz Fender, yeah, that's his name. Anyway, he's done these he built a lot of guitars, of course, and the guy's backed up for years. So if you want him to build you a Fender guitar, you gotta wait like a year or something. But anyway, my friend Joe, he bought one off of Wildwood Guitars. You know, it was like a used. But man, that's like the best sounding classic vintage Strat sound that I've ever heard. It's like you play it and it sounds like a record. You know, it's funny how hard it is to get that sound. Like just a real, like you play it and you're like, oh, this is a Strat. This is what a Strat sounds like. You know. And sure, it was noisy, and they were underwound. I think they were underwound pickups because I think I measured the resistance on them, and they were pretty low output, and you know, definitely hand wound pickups. They were underwound. If I'm But I mean, it's all relative because at the end of the day, you can you can have a a guy with a beautiful sounding Strat, and then his hands sound like shit, you know, because he doesn't practice, or he has bad time, or he doesn't dial in a good sound. So then what gives, you know? Like I remember when I remember I got a Line 6 pod because Lincoln Brewster. If you guys haven't heard Lincoln Brewster, he's like this Christian singer guitar player, but he used to play with Steve Perry from Journey, and he played like a Line 6 pod, and he got like the baddest Strat sound out of that, you know. And I bought a Line 6 pod X3 live because of that, because of the sounds that he got on it. And you know, he just had like a Strat with DiMarzio pickups, and then that pod, but it sounded like as good as any Strat could ever sound, you know. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's like sure you got the gear, but then it's also what you do with it, you know. It's I There's certainly lots of expensive guitars that I've played that don't sound good, you know. And then one of the things that, you know, one of my friends that passed away last year, I've talked to him a little bit here in the channel, Dan Warner. He did, you know, he was like he recorded with everybody, you know. He recorded with Michael Jackson, he recorded with Chris Cornell and everybody. But anyway, he told me one time he did a thing for Gibson, and they gave him a free custom shop Les Paul as payment for what he did. And then I was at a studio, and then I was like, hey, what's this? And he's like, oh, it's this custom shop Les Paul. And I was like, how is it? He's like, I fucking hate it. Then we took it out, and it was just like just like it was like dead, you know. It didn't sound, you know. You played it even acoustically. You would just play it acoustically, and it's just like something like what is it, you know? It's like it looks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, but it's not a duck. So, you know, I think Gibson had a phase of that where they were just I don't know what the story behind it was, but it was just they were just putting out so many crappy instruments, you know, and um, I think that's why people would, all right, dude, take care. I think that's why people hated the Gibson thing for a while, and now Gibson is making a comeback, and supposedly now the Gibsons are good again. I haven't bought a new Gibson, but I only have two Gibsons, I think. Just my Les Paul, which is a 1960 reissue classic, and then an SG that I bought, and they're both good. I mean, my Les Paul, I love it. The SG is not bad. Um, when I sit down, I have to work solo. Um, Usually for these pop songs, it's kind of improvised, I guess. I kind of improvise a few times, and then and I'll record it, you know. And then if there's any lines that I really like, because a lot of these things have to be like very hooky, you know. So if there's something that I really like, I'll I'll re-record it again and reference back to that melody, you know. Um, if it's something for like my channel or something like the videos that I usually post, demo and gear, it's usually improvised, but I'll play over it like 150 times, and probably do 150 takes. It takes forever. But then I'll kind of know, like, oh, when it gets to this chord, I want to play this sound or whatever, that kind of thing. Sometimes, like very rarely, I'll work something out. Like I'll work a full solo out and then I'll record it. That I do that like rarely, but sometimes, like if I feel like it really, you kind of know when you have to do that. But then if you're not like a great improviser, then you kind of have to do that always. Have you ever tried the new Harley Benton Fusion? No, I haven't. I'll show you what I have tried though. I'll pull it up in a second. Do you have a routine to accomplish that, or it depends on the song? Yeah, it just depends on the song. So check this out. This is I shouldn't be doing this shit during quarantine, but I got a new guitar. I think I posted a picture of it, but oh, I think I disconnected or something. Am I still here? Hope you guys can still see me. But this is a Supro Claremont. This is really cool, and my main reason for getting this was actually because it's got a Bigsby. And I don't have a guitar with a Bigsby, so this is my first guitar with a Bigsby. But it really sounds great. Feel some of this gain. The neck is, the bridge is like super spanky. This is probably the next demo that I'll do. Here, let me go back into the fractal, because for this amp I have to keep jumping up here to tweak it. That's a pain. Alright. Sorry for the angle there. Alright, so go back in here. Yeah, that's the thing with the amp. I have to be climbing up there. Well, actually, not to tweak the sound, but. Oh, wait. Sorry. There we go. That's a cool chord. My teacher Tom, he's got like from college, he has like massive hands, so he could play this chord with the F. I can't do that, but it's like an F. I guess you can play it like this. Shit. My guitar's out of tune though. But this guitar is great. I love it. I've only recorded it a few times because I literally just got it some days ago. And he told me that Dave Coltai from Pictronics, he owns Pictronics and Supro. This is Supro. So he told me that he restrung it and did the setup right before he sent it. So the strings are probably new. Really comfortable. The action is great. Sounds great, just as any other instrument you play. Oh, thanks, man. They all sound the same, right? I'm just buying guitars for no reason. And I tell myself they sound different. How do I practice scales and arpeggios? Oh, so check it out. I was doing this yesterday. I have a track on my channel. I need to rename it because it took me forever to find it. But it was, let me see, it was like backing track, major modes or something like that. Here we go. Okay. Major modes workout. So, man, this is, I used to make these tracks in my old house with these little rocket speakers. and I didn't have a sub, so everything has so much bass. It's like, look at this. The room is shaking with bass. Anyway, so let's see here. Let me just put a little bit of drive. Okay. So something I will do, like I was doing this yesterday because I was supposed to do a session last night, and I tried to open it and it was all fucked up. The guy had sent me the wrong thing, so I ended up not recording last night. But then I started doing this. So this track that I made years ago, 5 years ago, it's like 8 bars of like major. Then it goes to like 8 bars of like Dorian. Then it goes to like 8 bars of Phrygian. Then it goes to 8 bars of Lydian. Then it goes, sorry. Then it goes to 8 bars of Mixolydian. Then it goes to 8 bars of Aeolian, and then it goes to 8 bars of like Phrygian, right? So I think I was just doing like, just to work on my legato, I was doing like really slow. That 4 sounds like shit, but sorry. What's next? Mixolydian? That could be like a thing to do for playing and for just kind of getting that together, you know. As far as like playing, like over, sometimes I'll just dial in like just like a jazz standard or something, and then I'll try to play with a certain idea in mind, you know, like this. So the thing with this is like you have to play it different than like a shredding. Like, let me read some of these comments. Sorry, guys, I'm forgetting that there are comments. Scroll down. Just wanted to let you know that you're one of the few. Oh man, thank you. Well, you know the thing with this is that this hand has to change. It has to become somebody else for the jazz stuff, you know? Yeah, Simon Peter King is fucking badass. Dude's got crazy chops. So you can't play this. You can't play jazz with the same way that you play. Like this is something totally different when you're playing this kind of. Like if I was playing the maybe the the rock stuff, I would play a lot harder. You know, I would dig in some more. But for this kind of stuff, I'm playing so light. You know, like if I take this off, like this is as loud as I'm playing. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, obviously the notes, the note choices, and all that stuff is super important to what the style of music that you're playing, but also the feel and the kind of picking and all that stuff, you know. And also you know, like if I was gonna play this at a gig, actually, I probably wouldn't play all that scaly stuff. I'd probably do more. You know, it's a little bit more reserved, I guess, if you're actually playing than practicing. Because you don't want to practice while you're playing at a gig, you know? Then it sounds like you're practicing. And I think a lot of people are attracted more to like this kind of thing. You know, I would do more of that approach if I was playing at a gig, and then in the practice room do all the crazy shredding shit. Because nobody wants to hear that. Only guitar players want to hear that. For this kind of stuff, definitely more alternate. You know, and then if I was playing the rock stuff, maybe a little bit more. Maybe more of the legato stuff, and then maybe the sweepy thing. I mean, I feel like I'm not good enough at any one of those styles to only stick to one. So I have to mix it with all of them. Like for me, legato is the easiest for fast runs, you know. But it sounds a certain way, and this sounds a certain way. That also sounds a certain way. This also sounds a certain way, you know. So sometimes you want that sound. But anyway, probably stick around a few more minutes, and I gotta grab something to eat because at 8 I have to call this guy for a session. So what's up with you guys? Let me know if you have any more quick questions. It's the first time I use this guitar for anything jazzy. It's kind of cool. I wish I played more jazz. I don't do any jazz here. Just here. There's a cool jazz scene in Miami, but you know, just not enough bread. It's more tempting to do all the other easy shit that pays 4 times more, you know. But anyway, oh, I just realized there was more comments. Sorry, I forget to scroll down. Am I always picking with that pick angle? Let me see. Shit, I missed a bunch of these. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Am I giving Skype lessons? Maybe next month. I want to say yeah, but I have so much stuff that I have to finish because the deadlines for the Latin Grammys are at the end of this month, and I'm producing 2 albums that these people want to have done by then, so it's kind of crazy What's my favorite overdrive distortion pedals? Okay, so I love my pedal board right now. I have the Andy Timmons, the JHS. That's a cool Marshall style pedal. And then the Dude by not J Rocket, the Dude. That's a great Dumble pedal. Um, I have some pedals here that I've run into the front of the Axe Effects. The Eruptor by Earthquaker. It's a fuzz. It's loud as shit, but it's badass. And Westwood, it's cool too. It's like a kind of low to medium overdrive, but it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's definitely not Dumbly. It's kind of like maybe Tweedy. I don't know. Then I also have the Friedman Dirty Shirley. That one's cool. It's a little more fizzy than the Andy Timmons. I have the Bogner Ecstasy Blue. That one's cool too, but I think that one's on retirement. I used to so much. Um, but yeah, those are the ones that I've been using lately. When I do use them, you know. The Dude I love a lot because I love the Robin Ford kind of sound, and that's like you turn it on and it sounds like that, you know. That's by J Rocket, Rocket Pedals. Oh, dude, sorry. Am I missing anything? I don't want to be the guy that's showing off my own stuff, but let me know if I can post some of my videos here in the world. Sure, man. I don't know how you could post a video here, but uh, yeah, I don't know, like a picture or something. I'm not very familiar with this thing, you know. I'd like to get more amps. Right now, I just have I have a couple of I have the Indigo, um, which is like the Dumbly Vox thing, and then the Deluxe Reverb. I kind of wanted also to get one of these Mojo Tone amp kits to build I forgot a tweed or something. I'd love to do that just for fun to build an amp. Um, I talked to them. It says that it's not that difficult, you know, just basic soldering skills, and it takes some time. But right now I have some time to do that, you know, because I can do it while watching TV or whatever. Oh, my pick angle. Let me see. Pick angle. I always hold it like the flat of the thumb and then the side of the index finger, like this, you know. I don't think about the pick and the pick situation other than I know that like George Benson and Adam Rogers they hold it with like the middle of this finger and then the middle of this finger. So like this, I know they pick like this. I can't do that. That's why Benson's arm looks like it's upside down almost. This just feels comfortable to me. Ever built my own guitar? No, I haven't built. I've put together a bunch of crap, like those Strats up there. I've messed around with them a lot. Eventually, I'd like to. I know. Stewie Mac has those little kits. Maybe I'll get one of those Les Paul Jr. kits, because now I have two sets of P90s lying around. All right, let me see what else, guys. Just a few more minutes, probably around 7:30. I'll head to eat. Yeah, I usually work. I usually do all my session work like starting at night, and I work through the night till like 5 or 6 a.m. But this guy wants to do the audio movers. I don't know if you guys have seen that. There's a plugin that's called Audio Movers, which means that he can open a session on his end, and everything that I record, he hears it, like with just a little bit of latency, you know. But he hears it in the quality that I'm recording it. So he wants to do that. So whatever. I don't feel like doing it, but whatever. So yeah. Then I got 6 songs to do for this other guy in Mexico. But that's cool. I mean, he just tells me what he needs, and then I'll do them at my own pace. I was writing the chart for one of them now, and then I have to. It's funny sometimes. This is like where I write all my charts of songs that I'm tracking, so everything's always a mess, you know. And then this one song that I was writing down for him, I thought it was gonna be like a 2-chord thing or a 4-chord thing, like it usually is. And so I had a chart for some other song here, so I was like, oh, let me use half of this paper. And then I had so many changes that I had to like rewrite it again so that it all could be in one page. Hey, thanks, Alan. Appreciate it. Clean amps or dirty amp styles? Well, I guess both. I think the drive of an amp sounds very different from a pedal, you know? So, like this amp, the Indigo has a really cool drive, and I think I'm gonna do a video of that amp next because it's got, you know, it can do like the Brown sound kind of Marshall thing, but then it can do like the Voxy kind of like Brian May thing too, and then it does like the Dumbo thing really well. So I think that's really cool. Those are like different colors of gain, you know. And for that I don't even use a pedal. But then if I put like the dude in front of the clean amp, it sounds great, you know. I haven't really messed around with boosting that, like the drive channel with a boost in front of it. I know that's what like a lot of people use the SD9 for. I had that SD9 for a while, the Maxon SD9. I sold it. It works for everybody except for me, I guess. I guess it doesn't work that well with the deluxe reverb unless you're really cranking it. But I know like Scott Henderson swears by it, and Michael Landau swears by it. So I'm sure it's a great pedal. But anyway, guys, probably gonna wrap up over here. Thanks for watching. Check out my video that I posted yesterday if you haven't already. With the P90s. Leave me some love. That was a fun video to make because I like the song that I did. It was inspired by the Chris Cornell vibe, the Euphoria Morning. All right, thanks, Boop. Jonathan, Jared, thanks, guys. All right, be safe. All right, dudes, take care.